Welcome back to the Lazaretto. It's Jake.
It's it's been
And Darnell.
All right. Yeah, boys. We thought it would be appropriate to talk about today, speak on Star Wars. May the 4th be with you. So we're going to talk about each trilogy and then the saga as a whole, doing it by release date. So, Ben, kick us off with A New Hope.
Yes, Star Wars, A New Hope, released on December 4th, 1963. Oh, actually, it was like May 1977. Sometime in 1977. Anyway, what do we have to say about this one? I mean, in my mind, it is Star Wars for me, basically. It is the movie.
It is the movie. It captures the magical, like it sets the tone of, I guess, how it feels to be, I don't know, looking up to Luke Skywalker as your hero, and you're like, oh man, he's a nobody. Wink, wink.
Yeah. I don't know. Go on.
This one was just fantastic, man. I mean, they made it, and I feel like George Lucas tries to say that he had this big plan all along of doing these movies, but in reality, I think he was just hoping this one would be a hit and that'd be enough, because it ended on a solid note of, you know what, here's your medallions.
Yeah, I think he had written. Obviously, he had some ideas for how it would continue and stuff. I mean, I'm sure there's Star Wars buffs out there who know so much more about this than we do. But yeah, he obviously wasn't counting on it being. Well, obviously, who could have known that it would turn into what it did? But.
Yeah, especially for the time. I mean, you had other like entities of the same, I guess, matter, like Battlestar Galactica and Star Trek and stuff like that. But Star Wars is, and I know some people that just do not care for Star Wars, they group it all together. But I think it's significantly different than Battlestar Galactica and Star Trek.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's so much more likable, obviously, than either of those. I mean, Star Wars is the biggest media franchise ever, really. I mean, for as long as that's existed, which is not very long, to be honest. But I mean, it's like George Lucas is the most influential pop culture creator of it, probably, as long as blockbuster movies and everything have been a thing. Yeah, one thing I do have to say, though, is being older now and going back and watching the original Star Wars, you do realize how it's much less. It's much simpler than you really think it is when you're a kid and you're watching it. Just kind of the production is a little flimsier, like you can kind of start to see how, they kind of glued some parts of the movie together and they were kind of stretched thin with the budget, maybe here and there.
The Han Solo edit of who shot first, him or Greedo, and they made it look like Greedo. It's a weird cut of his head just like moves over to the side.
Yeah, and then now, did you read where in the very latest version of the movie, Greedo, when he gets shot, he yells McClunky?
No, I have not.
Yeah,
what's
latest
that?
edit, he yells like McClunky, and then they shoot him. I'm not even kidding.
Huh.
Yeah, I mean, it really is, and that's one thing. I'm a decently big Star Wars fan, I guess, but I don't really understand when people get super mad over it, as if it's like a really deep philosophical story. I mean, it's really simple. It's just Jedi or knights and like wizards. You have your princess. You have the peasant boy who kind of pulls Excalibur out of the stone.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple, but I don't know. Some neckbeards try to act like it's, a really 3D 5e, and it's not. It's not worse because it's simple. It's just,
The fan base is so toxic, man. Like, it makes you not want to like it, and that's with a lot of things like music and different pop culture things, where you don't want to like it because so many people they hate anything that changes about the original. Which let me
yeah,
let me restate that. It doesn't really change the original, but anything that's like an addition to what's been set in stone so many years ago.
yeah. I think, yeah, there definitely are those people. But I think an interesting. What were you gonna say?
Star Wars, the original trilogy, is 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 the best one ever, and anything new sucks biggins.
I'd probably agree with those people, honestly. But yeah, there are definitely people like that. I think one interesting thing to think about, though, jumping ahead, but so like the original trilogy and the prequels were made by George Lucas to varying degrees. He was behind the main story at least. So he owned Star Wars, right? Like obviously it was his idea. He was in control of it. But when he handed it over to Disney, now who owns Star Wars now? Who has the rightful claim to owning it? Is it the fandom that's been around for decades and who watched all the old movies and read like all the books and played the video games and all this stuff, versus the slave masters at Disney who just kind of bought it, So I think I do agree. I side with the fans who, when the fans have problems with the new ones, I side with them usually because I think the fandom owns Star Wars more than anyone now.
I think it's interesting to see how. Shoot, I lost my train of thought. It's interesting to see how like the rights were split up, like the toys, like it wasn't they owned something wholly. It was split up so much, and like this group got a bunch of money, this group got a bunch of money, the movies got its own money, and the merchandise just on different levels. And now Disney's kind of in control of that. You go into a Disney store and you see the what's it called, the Elite Black Series of action figures and mask and all that, big Disney mark on it, which I mean they're doing good with what they're doing. I know a lot of people disagree with that as a monopoly.
Yeah, I just know that like regular Star Wars toys they haven't sold very well in like the latest trilogy. I don't think that's so much because that's not proof that the movies are bad or anything. It's just I just think in general. I think generally the power that Star Wars had over kids isn't what it once was. I think when we were kids, Star Wars was one of the main, if you were like a young boy especially, Star Wars toys were one of the main toys you had probably.
Oh, dude, I have...
Yeah, go on.
Oh, sorry. I have a bunch, like, still in the room I'm recording in right now. I was looking at the closet, and I have a cargo tote of Star Wars action figures that have never been opened. There's from the or not the original trilogy, the prequel trilogy, and the Clone Wars animated series. And I know a couple of them are worth some money, and the rest are just, still $12 or however much we gave for them back then. But
yeah,
yes, I agree. I don't see many kids like, oh, I want a Star Wars toy. I see just seeing my nephew and niece, I see more of like wrestling and monster trucks and other kids their age. That's kind of what their go-to is, and it's just the change of times, I guess.
Yeah, there's just so much more diversity in what a kid can get into now.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't forget how we got on the subject of the Star Wars merchandise, but yeah, I think I guess the broader point is, I think it's pretty evident that Star Wars in general is pretty much, I feel like there's not a lot of new fandom. I mean, I'm sure there's enough, but the people who are really talking about Star Wars and freaking out about it one way or the other are, people our age and above, So
yeah,
I think it's
But speaking of like the new fans, I guess like for me, I guess thinking about like if are they gaining anybody, or is it just like they're catering to like the same audience since like 1977? And I'm thinking the only way like new fans are becoming, or getting into like the Star Wars community is like if like say dad,
their parents,
like the dad shows like his son, the Star Wars, try to bond with him, or like a mom and a daughter, stuff like that, which is like a weird way but it's like kind of like a generational thing more so than like people just being exposed to it on their own. It's like you have to know about Star Wars to tell somebody about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
No, I'll say that's true about showing your kids, because like we've shown my son Isaac, we've shown him Star Wars, like all of it that's on Disney Plus and what I own on DVD, and he sits there, and I guess it's just the noises combined with the colors that just flash, but he loves it. Like he just sits there and loves it. He'll watch that, and we watched the Legos, which is interesting because I grew up, couldn't afford Legos. And so I don't like watching the Lego stuff besides like Lego Movie.
Yeah.
And so the Lego Star Wars is actually pretty good to watch. It's got some side humor in it and all that good action. But Darnell, do you remember I know you were I feel like you were a Star Trek fan before Star Wars. Do you remember when you watched Star Wars for like the first time?
Yeah, it was the third one, and so like in the new trilogy, it was the third one, like they come out in the 2000s with Hayden Christensen and all them, and that was the first one I think that got me into Star Wars. So like when like Darth Vader becomes Darth Vader and all that.
Mm-hmm. Darth Vader becomes Darth Vader.
Like I just remember like seeing these dudes like flipping in the air and like fighting with these light swords and stuff, and I was like, okay, I can get into this.
Yeah,
But yeah, that was my first Star Wars experience, and then then you guys kind of got me further into it as it further went down the line. So it's kind of like
was kind of into it.
Yeah, I guess we were.
Now Star Wars, the first exposure. Like I can't remember the first time I ever watched Star Wars. I knew I had seen the old ones. And my sister's like ex-boyfriend, he gave me it was from the original trilogy. I wish I still had it. It was a toy set of Hoth, and it was really cool. Little figurines and everything.
Sounds awesome.
It's probably worth something now. I do not know what I did with it. Moving, a few different times, being an adult and throwing away toys. It's upsetting. But so A New Hope, I mean, going from A New Hope to Empire Strikes Back, you see the budget gets a little bit better. Darth Vader's suit improves. You see more details on it, and less, I guess, handprints on it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, Empire Strikes Back. I think that's regarded as the best one among the fandom. A lot of people love Empire Strikes Back, and I love it too. But A New Hope's going to always be my favorite.
Yeah, I think far and away, Empire Strikes Back is the best Star Wars movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like no argument. And I mean, this is what everyone else says, but I agree with it. And that's that if you don't have Empire Strikes Back, you just don't really have a mythology, really, or like a real heart to what Star Wars is. Because it's in the Empire Strikes Back where the whole we find out the actual family details of the whole Skywalker thing. We actually we actually find out what the Force is. Yoda actually creates the myth of the Force, because in the original one, it's just okay, here's this magic thing.
Mm-hmm.
With it fleshed out a bit more in Empire Strikes Back. Emperor and all this stuff, but aside from that, it's just on a movie level, like an actual film with a capital F level. It's the best made, I think. So.
Mm-hmm. It's the introduction of Crazy Yoda, which is the best Yoda, no argument. Just being a puppet, love it.
My favorite Yoda is in the prequels when he hops around like an idiot. He hops
those
around.
Those are good too.
I don't know, like a flea. Yeah.
Everybody loved that. Yoda, it's funny to see Yoda, like he went from crazy old creature to they kind of toned him in. He's on the Board of Education for Jedi.
Board of Education. Yeah, he's on the county board.
He's on the county board, and he's more serious, and he's got a cane and not hop. Well, he hops around when he wishes. But it's Empire Strikes Back, man. It's really good. It does dive deeper into the mythology, because you don't, like you said, you don't have anything without that movie. You just have a plane, Space Wars.
Yeah.
That's all that happens, the end. And then it's like, well, let's expand on it. Let's go back and talk about the past of everything and what is to come.
Yeah. And like the character development too is so important in it, because you actually learn about how the people are and how they act, and Luke is no longer that whiny. He's still kind of whiny, but he can actually do a few things here and there. Everyone really just gets fleshed out. What more is there to say about that one for me?
I don't really know, man. Just saying it's the best that sums it up. It's the best among the fandom, and everybody loves it. That's all. It kind of sums up everything.
Yeah, I would go so far as to say that without you don't really have. I already said this, but even more, it's like you just don't really have a Star Wars universe without this movie. Because it's that one really good movie that defines a franchise. Like, I don't know, maybe in Marvel, you have like the Marvel franchise, you have certain movies that kind of hold the rest of the whole thing up. Maybe a worse Marvel movie, or a kind of middle of the road Marvel movie.
Right.
Like, I don't know.
Captain Marvel.
Yeah, Captain Marvel, which I didn't watch, but
I watched it, unfortunately, and I keep an open mind when watching movies, and I just couldn't do it, man. It was no good. But I know what you're saying.
Yeah, you have that, but you have a great, or like a really good movie, like I guess like the actual like Endgame and Infinity War that kind of prop everything up on their own, that sort of thing.
And people, I feel like too many fanboys worship Endgame.
I haven't seen it still.
Really, it's
I
good.
haven't seen it or Infinity War, so.
Really, dang boys, it's good. They're both good, but as you watch Marvel movies, I feel I started losing interest. I don't know. I guess beginning of Phase 3, and it concludes with Spider-Man, the newest Far From Home Spider-Man, and Endgame that came out before, and Infinity War. But I started losing interest probably Phase 3. I wasn't watching as many of them, but the one that got me back into it was Black Panther. It was just I don't know. It felt like watching Iron Man 1 again.
Really?
Yeah, it was, I don't know. The soundtrack was great. Soundtrack in Iron Man 1 is a lot of AC/DC. And, it's totally opposite. It was more Kendrick Lamar and Schoolboy Q and 2 Chainz and stuff like that on the Black Panther soundtrack. But it just captured something it captured the same essence but differently. And that's what got me back into it. I went to Black Panther because I was like, well, I've got the CD in my car. It's a good CD. Let's go. And I was blown away. I was like, dang, I'm back into it. I want to watch all of them again. But I don't know how we got there. But yeah. Star Wars set itself up for there's going to be some bad ones along the way when the first 3 movies that were ever created are looked at as amazing pieces of work, which they are.
Yeah. One more important thing to note about Empire Strikes Back, part of why it is the best, according to a lot of people, and I think I agree with this mostly, is George Lucas didn't actually direct it, nor did he write it. He might have helped write it. I forget. Braxton probably knows all this, and I'm probably butchering all this. And
if they like a part 2 with Braxton?
Yeah, we really did get Braxton on here so we can duke it out.
He's the best Star Wars fan. He's
just the biggest one I know, I think.
He absolutely. I thought you were the biggest one I knew until I met Braxton. I was like, oh, this dude, he breathes it. He would change his own background to Star Wars, and I was like, I want to be like him. I want to be more committed to Star Wars.
I mean, he smokes that Tatooine.
I probably have Braxton beat in terms of like the video games. I don't think Braxton was ever really a big gamer, but yeah, other than that, he's got to be rarely outdone in terms of the fandom. But what I was saying is, so George Lucas he wasn't really quite directly involved with Empire Strikes Back. He did like the basic story and supervised it and all that. But you had Irvin Kershner, who directed it and obviously did a good job, and Lawrence Kasdan, who wrote also Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens. He wrote Empire Strikes Back. And so I feel like there was kind of like a perfect balance of George Lucas being involved but not being too involved, because we've all seen that when George Lucas is number one man in charge, you get some of the cornier, maybe worse stuff that you get in the prequels.
Misa!
Yeah, like Jar Jar or the Italian diner alien in episode 2 or whatever. But yeah, so I think that's an important thing to
Italian diner alien. Like you're never going to hear that statement again. It's just like a one-off statement.
That is, when I woke up this morning, I had not planned on uttering that phrase, but yeah. So I think that's important to note, that part of why it was the best movie is because there was the perfect balance of George Lucas versus other people.
Keeping them in check and trying to be like, you know what, we're trying to be a pretty good movie. Yeah. So let's not put all your little creatures and personalities in it. I guess that's pretty much all without beating a dead horse on Empire Strikes Back. I can fanboy on that one. But you said all that there needs to be said on it. But the third, episode 6 of the original trilogy, Return of the Jedi, which was going to be Revenge of the Jedi, and there's all them Star Wars nerds out there that's like, I already knew that. But Return of the Jedi, man, it's a solid movie. The start of it's just, I don't know, kicks it off differently. Not many movies can pull that off of, let's just be in a different setting and let's just go at it.
Yeah, it's almost like 2 movies in one. You have the whole Tatooine Jabba's palace deal, and then after that you just have a completely different thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
With like the whole space battle Endor stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I like Return of the Jedi. Obviously, it's still good. Maybe it's my least favorite of the originals because it's just got some, like, the whole Ewoks thing is kind of hit or miss.
Oh, you're an Ewok hater, whatever.
An Ewok heater, yeah. That was just kind of. That was Junior Varsity Jar Jar, I think. Like the whole, why don't we put
cannibalistic
creatures?
titty
Well,
bears.
yeah, like, why don't we put these creatures in here and it'll give everyone a laugh? And I mean, it was fine, but it was just kind of hit or miss for me.
See, I had seen a documentary one time that discussed there's two kinds of people that hate Ewoks and people that love it. And I guess you're an old soul because they say that line is people that grew up on the original trilogy and they're like, oh, we hated it. And then people that grew up with the prequel trilogy and it's like, oh, we love Ewoks. We love the cutesy stuff.
Yeah, I guess that is a pretty big division. I don't know. I don't want to offend anyone, but for me, it's like the Ewok is like, okay, this is either for toddlers or your mom's watching it with you, and that's just kind of something for your middle-aged mom to look at and be like, oh, that was nice. And that's fine.
So sweet.
But yeah, that was the whole Endor thing was just, even when I was a kid, that was always pretty boring to me. Like running around on the speeder bikes and all that stuff. It was just pretty boring. What I did like was all the epic space stuff. I thought that stuff was good and satisfying. So, but that's just me.
Now, fun fact, everybody knows the ending of, well, all Star Wars fans know the ending of Return of the Jedi was, Darth Vader coming back to the light side and protecting his son and throwing yeeting Palpatine away. Yeah. But it was that turning moment of borderline Luke Skywalker was going to lose, and Anakin peeked back through the cloud known as Darth Vader and saved him. And he takes that mask off. Another ending that was propositioned was when Luke Skywalker popped that mask off of Darth Vader. He put it on and he said, "I'm Darth Vader now," or something along the lines of that. And it was supposed to be this big twist of dun dun dun, the sour note that you end on.
That sounds like something George Lucas would come up with.
Yeah, it totally left field.
Yeah,
See, I don't know. Anyways, we'll talk about that. We'll bring that back up again whenever we get into the sequel series.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad movie by any means. It's still probably in the top 5 or 6 Star Wars movies in general. So I don't really have too many complaints with it.
Darnell, how did you feel about the original trilogy cap off there with episode 6?
If I'm remembering it correctly, is this the one where Luke finds out that Darth Vader is his father.
No, that's the end of Empire Strikes Back.
Okay, but I don't know. It just kind of, I guess, like this, or this kind of skipping ahead to like the 7, 8, and 9, but it kind of goes back to like the good guy turning bad, or I mean, the bad guy turning good, and it's like the same way, the same thing that Kylo Ren did in episode 9. So I think it's kind of like I guess this whole thing like is this good versus evil archetype is kind of played out really good in like the first set of like 4, 5, and 6, and they kind of just rehash the same type of archetype throughout like all the movies, but at the same time it's just like the way that they do it. Like that's like the Star Wars and like Marvel and DC, like they're the only, like there's like some kind of weird chemistry that they
set formula.
Yeah, they can keep replaying the same thing, but then at the same time you don't get sick of it because there's just like minor tweaks and changes. I guess that's my whole spiel on like the first set of like that got this whole universe started out.
Yeah.
What else is there to say on Return of the Jedi besides it was the the first cap off of all right, this is the Skywalker trilogy. This is over with.
Just one fun fact that I want to share is just, my roommate a couple years ago. So George Lucas obviously has the reputation of tweaking things in his movies, like there's like the Han shot first thing, so on and so forth. So when I was growing up, the ending of Return of the Jedi, they have that song, just like that kind of do that whole thing. I just thought that was the ending, but then I watched. So my roommate found remember like laser discs, those things or whatever. So someone ripped Return of the Jedi from a laser disc from the 80s that had like the actual original, like the truly original movie on it, and we watched it, and the ending song it just wasn't there. It was just like this plinky little, it was literally just Ewoks like humming. There was like no song it was like it wasn't even that, it was like really low in the mix. It was just kind of petered out. So that really surprised me.
I guess that's one maybe the only good thing that George Lucas did when going back and screwing around with his movies and digital effects. There's just so much that he messed around with. It just doesn't look right because the effects weren't like, it would look all right for the Jabba, not the original Jabba where it's just a man in a fur coat, but just a regular edit of Jabba the Hutt. It just suits that timeline, and then you have this weird 2000s looking CGI in there, and it doesn't look good. They add little creatures in the background,
like an alien, like that song they sing in the in Jabba's palace. Oh god, that was cringe.
Like who? I don't know. I guess he had too much power.
But
I mean, it was a sexy little song, but not for the kids.
Yeah, I don't know, man. That kind of weirded me out. Like,
I
don't know. It's it's now like it's kind of a thing. Like, it happened, but it's like it didn't need to. You know what I mean? It's like you just accept it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't know. Even when I was a kid, I felt cringe whenever I would watch the alien singing. And remember, there's a part where that one alien, the guy alien, he sings and it like focuses on his uvula, like flying around his mouth while he's singing. I'm like, oh my god, what the hell?
We're gonna make this movie 10 times better by just doing this. Yeah, it's so out of place, and the the effects just do not jive with the age of the original film.
Yeah.
It's like this Christopher Walken thing. He's like, you're going to want more cowbell. But George Lucas is like, nah, I'm telling you, man, you're going to want more uvula in that shot. I'm telling you.
More of the uvula. Yeah, gosh, George Lucas. And then it made sense when he did it. I'm going to put the Christian. Wait, what's his name? Dang it, I messed it up.
Christensen.
Hayden Christensen. I'm going to put him in instead of the actor who played Darth Vader in the final Force Ghost that you see in Return of the Jedi. But also you got Old Yoda and Ben Kenobi.
Yeah, just oh man, there's so many things. I mean, to be fair, there were certain things that he changed, like the ending song, which I'm a fan of.
Mm-hmm.
In certain parts he updated, like some of the lighting needed help, or certain parts of the scenery he kind of improved. Things that you wouldn't even notice. So he did improve some things, but other things, obviously, just I don't know what he was doing. But that's really all I have to say about that.
He was a wild man with the effects. More cowbell, as Darnell says. You know, fun fact of Yoda, originally he was supposed to be like a monkey.
That that sounds familiar. That wouldn't surprise me. He is sort of monkeyish.
They planned to dress up a real monkey in a Yoda costume. That was the plan.
That's a joke, right? That's not real.
This is real. This is real.
Nah, I definitely believe it.
Jeez.
I mean, that's like something like they would do in like 1920 or something. They make a King Kong movie or something. Like you wouldn't think somebody would do that in like 1977, but I guess that's just like the times.
Yeah, for sure.
Showing its age, I guess, the different era. Of
cinema, but a reason that like didn't run with it. There's actual photos. There's actual photos of the monkey training for the Yoda part in the prototype mask, and look that up. Anybody that's listening, and Ben and Darnell, look that up. It's funny. Let's see. What was it? But a crew member had said they had worked on the 2001 A Space Odyssey, and they used apes in the opening sequence of that movie. And they were like, that's a huge headache. There's no point in doing this. Just get Frank Oz to do it because he's a mastermind. Yeah. I don't know if he said, get Frank Oz, but that's where we ended up at. But it would be different seeing a little monkey running around in a costume.
Yeah, that wouldn't have ended well. But
Mark Hamill murdered by co-star. It's funny to think Mark Hamill, because you think of Luke Skywalker, and then immediately you think of the Joker. He voiced the Joker, and he made a career mostly on voice acting.
Yeah,
and then after Star Wars. I was watching quick side note. I've been watching a lot of Adventure Time, another cartoon that my boy likes to watch, and I love to watch. Mark Hamill sometimes he does like background characters on the show. Yeah, they get some pretty good guest stars to voice on the show, like the main antagonist through the first couple of seasons, and I guess through the whole thing, the Lich. That's voiced by Ron Perlman.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know it had such major people on it.
Oh, yeah. A lot of people. But anyway, I just wanted to throw that in there. So, Return of the Jedi. capped it off, and I was like, okay, that's the last note in the book of Star Wars. And then the 2000s came. Well, what, 99?
Yeah.
99 came, and George Lucas said, we're gonna do a prequel trilogy. And to think of, was that done? Had that been done yet? Going back and making a prequel to something?
I'm sure. I mean, obviously not on the scale that Star Wars did it. Maybe Jaws did a prequel. I don't know.
Did Jaws do a prequel?
If anything, it'd just be like a flashback in a movie rather than doing like a whole series. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It'd be like within the same movie, they would like go back in time, but this is like, not that I know of. It's like a whole new ball game, I guess.
So you kick off. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ben.
No, you go ahead. I think you were heading into it.
So A Phantom Menace comes out, and so I guess we were like 2 and 3 years old at this point in time, so we didn't watch it brand spanking. Well, wait, Ben, didn't your parents take you to the theater to watch A Phantom Menace or something?
I don't remember it. I would have been 2 years old, but they said that whenever Darth Maul showed up on the screen, I thought it was like a demon or whatever. I cried or whatever at it, but yeah, I technically did see it. But
that's interesting, dude. Yeah, Darth Maul. Whew. You go from Darth Vader to, all right, we got this pretty cool looking Darth Maul. And if you ever look at other, I guess, fan arts, or not fan arts, interpretations and drafts of Darth Maul, he does not look quite as cool.
I mean, I think he ended up just fine in the movie.
Oh, yeah, he did. He did, definitely. But I like how, the concept art wasn't to par with what he ended up with, which is great. He ended up great. You got to see, it was a really big jump, which, I mean, years had passed. I mean, quite a few years had passed between Return of the Jedi and Phantom Menace. And you see, I don't know, it wasn't, well, was Mace Windu in episode 1?
Yeah, he wasn't really important, but he was in there.
You see a jump of, okay, they're just not blue and red lightsabers, blue, red, and green, which George Lucas was very, blue and green's what the good guys get, red is what the bad guys get, and then Samuel L. Jackson's like, I want a purple lightsaber. So it was a jump of that, and you got to see different designed lightsabers of the double-ended lightsaber Darth Maul carried, which was killer.
I thought that was crazy. I was like, how can he do that? Because dude, how can he control that without not cut? Because one's enough. You know what I mean? But I'm just going to put two on here. Yeah, I was like, what?
Yeah, his badass signature lightsaber, that's recognized, and it's even they even show it in the Clone Wars, which they wasted. I know they had to make moves, but they wasted Darth Maul in that first movie, just chopping him and saying, "No, he's dead." But Clone Wars animated series brought him back, and then he's recognized as he's alive.
I've heard some people argue that Count Dooku actually should have already been the evil guy in episode 1. Probably would have made more sense, maybe, but I think Darth Maul was pretty much just there for the cool factor, which is fine. One thing I gotta say about the prequels, just in general, especially episodes 1 and 2, are they good? Not really, but I feel like people can only get so mad because at this point, so George Lucas is the creator of Star Wars, and this is this is exactly his vision, because no one, whatever he said went when he made these movies. So I also understand that growing up in the time that we did, we weren't kids when the originals came out, so we weren't filled with the same rage that adults were when Jar Jar came out and all this stuff. But for me, I just accept that the prequels are, this is what George Lucas wanted, so this is it, for better or for worse. So I never really freaked out too much about that, with all like the prequel hate and stuff. I just kind of accept it. But yeah.
Yeah, I guess growing up and being young, dude, I didn't realize the hate of Jar Jar until I got into my preteens, because I loved Jar Jar at the time, because I mean he's just a funny little character, and he was absolutely, the target audience was children.
Yeah.
Miss when the race honey went in ma. But
yeah, I didn't really care about Jar Jar that much. Like, I just didn't really think about him. But
I don't know. I had a Jar Jar book from Scholastics or something.
Jar Jar.
Yeah, it really was. I think my mom might have ordered it. Like, did those book fair pamphlet things.
Yeah.
That was going back and watching them. Like, currently, I watched them with my father-in-law. I feel like me and him watched the first one probably 10 or 11 times for whatever reason. He just threw it on whenever I was at their house. But it's much better now than what you remember. Like, you think, oh, it's such a terrible movie. You got Jar Jar, and yeah, that is kind of annoying side story that's going on with Jar Jar.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
it's good. I would say my only complaint now, besides the Jar Jar, is you feel like you're watching a 30-minute droid race.
Yeah.
That thing goes on over just constantly.
Was just like a tech demo.
So this one's like, it's like where it's like young Anakin, right? The first one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's like doing like the pod racing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always thought that was like, for me, that was like the most memorable part. When I seen it when I was like, I guess 12 or 13, I was like, man, I'd like to have one of those race around. And then Salacious Crumb. That's just like a defining moment of the lunch table, was Salacious Crumb.
That was, I guess, quick aside, one day at the lunch table, I guess in high school, we were talking about, we were like, what is the name of that little like puppet thing that's Jabba's sidekick in Jabba's palace? And then our friend Zach Inslee just randomly said it's Salacious Crumb. And we
all laughed it off awkwardly, like,
like, no, well, that's a funny joke or whatever. And he was like, no, dude, it's Salacious Crumb. Then we looked it up, and I don't think Braxton even knew at that point. I think it even surprised Braxton. But
let us know, Braxton. Phone in.
Yeah, phone in. But yeah, funny little moment, slice of life. God, what were we talking about?
Phantom Menace.
Yeah, but like, I think it's not as bad as just growing up in the generation that we did. I guess we're just biased. Maybe I'm biased because of that, probably. But yeah, I don't think it is as bad as a lot of people said. It's definitely like a goofy movie. There's definitely some hit or miss elements to it.
Don't you ever bring a goofy movie into this conversation. It's a masterpiece.
It's still enjoyable as a Star Wars movie for me.
The midichlorians.
Yeah.
That they never bring up again.
I just think I just think, especially as I've gotten older, you just realize, well, as you get older in general, you realize that in movies and in media and stuff, a lot of ideas get picked up, and other times they abandon them or they retcon them, or, you know, or sometimes just stupid things like that pop up. So I just learned not to really care. Like, it's a pretty small part of the movie, truth be told. And for a different type of person, maybe it's more important. But for me, it's like, okay, it's just like a little thingamabob that they stuck in there. But again, like I was saying, I mean, George Lucas is God of this universe, and if that's what he says is the Force is made of, then I guess that's just what it is. So I'm just not really going to complain about it too much. Is it dumb? I guess probably, but yeah, it's not as bad as people like to make out. I think Jar Jar is stupid, I think, but I don't know. The more I think about it, they don't really do anything in the movie, which I guess is a major complaint that people have. I guess it sets a few things up, but
it's more like just like an exposition movie more than anything.
Yeah, they just kind of screw around. They race some pod racers. They, fight with some lightsabers. They find Anakin. Blah blah blah. So.
The chosen one. I also feel like I didn't know that the creation, how Anakin was born. I feel like I didn't know that until I was in my preteens. Also, because I mean, I just thought I don't know. He was just born. That was it. Not this whole mythology of the Force.
Yeah, like virgin birth or whatever, and all that immaculate conception type stuff.
Which isn't there something in which I know extended universe, and that'd be a good topic also, which is totally disregarded when Disney bought it now.
Yeah.
But the EU, I'm pretty sure I had seen something where Palpatine was the one behind the Immaculate Conception of. He's the one who gave the Force. Is that correct?
I think it was pretty much canon. I think maybe there was a little. It wasn't like maybe 100% canon, but basically, because in Episode 3, Palpatine talks about this, where he gives that whole spiel about there once was this Sith Lord who could create life, and then taught apprentice everything he knew. Blah blah blah. Palpatine was that apprentice. That was Darth Plagueis. All that stuff. So yeah, it was pretty much Darth Plagueis. So no, it wasn't Palpatine, but Palpatine's master created. Darth Plagueis was screwing around with the Force and then created Anakin. But again,
he power puffed it. He power puffed girls.
Yeah, put sugar, spice, and everything nice in the cauldron. That was.
And Mojo Jojo screwed it all up.
Yeah, but I think that was basically canon. But yeah, that was so Palpatine just kind of took advantage of it, I guess.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, Episode 1 is, I don't know. It's not a great movie. It's not good, but it's tolerable. I'll watch it for recreation.
I'll say this much: it's top 3 of the prequel trilogy.
Top 3 of the prequel.
It's number 2.
Yes, it's number 2 in the prequel trilogy.
The Attack of the Clones is definitely number 3 always. I mean, that brings us to the next one, Attack of the Clones, Episode 2, where you got I explained to somebody before because they had never seen Star Wars, and I was like, you need to watch it. And I told them, watch original trilogy, then prequel trilogy. And I was like, they watched Episode 1. They're like, I'm watching Episode 2 tomorrow night. I'm like, okay, let me just give you a heads up. There's a little bit of a time jump. They had to close the gap between the love interest. He's like, what are you talking about? I was like, you'll see. So they age Annie quite a bit too, I guess. Combat, Natalie Portman.
Yeah, episode 2 is peak cringe in terms of bad dialogue, bad acting, Italian diner aliens,
Space Gelato.
space gelato, corny romance. I don't know. And again, episode 2, I guess, will always be special to me because that's the first one I actually remember watching. I remember being, I guess, 5 years old and not even being in kindergarten yet, I guess, and going to see that movie in the summer. So,
that fight scene in the arena.
Yeah.
With not Darth Maul. Shoot, Mace Windu.
Yeah.
Obi-Wan. Oh, dude, I think that's killer. That's still killer to this day. Whether that movie's terrible or not, that's a good part of the movie.
Right.
Yeah. I know a lot of old heads dislike that part because it's all about it's like a CGI free for all where you have 10,000 Jedi running around and it's just like a CGI fest, but again,
practical effects are where it's at.
It's like CGI brawl.
CGI brawl, yeah. But I don't know. I mean, I grew up on it, so.
Oh, I forgot another point I was going to make when introducing the prequel series trilogy was lightsabers got a whole lot lighter. You went from two-handed combat to backflips and one-handed and tossing it around,
Yeah.
You ever notice that, Ben?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I just growing up watching the prequels, yeah, the lightsaber stuff does get over the top eventually, especially like in episode 3 when the final battle between Anakin and Obi-Wan, they're just like, it's like color guard or like marching band or something where they're just like flinging the stuff around 90 miles an hour. Yeah, it gets a little goofy. But
because I don't know, because like this is just like a side note. It's like it goes from like an English, like an English long sword that's like 7 feet long to like a katana that's like 3 ounces.
Yeah, it gets very anime.
Yeah.
To an extent, I think it makes a little more sense that they would do some crazier stuff with the lightsabers. Because if you're like force sensitive, then you have like heightened, coordination and ability and all this sort of stuff. So, again, it kind of gets goofy sometimes, but yeah, I'm fine with it. I don't really. It is what it is. That's my opinion on that. But
Darn, any thoughts on episode 2 of Space Cafes and Love Interest?
I don't know. It kind of episode 2 is kind of like how Lord of the Rings. It has like Fellowship of the Ring, Twin Towers, and then it has and then Return of the King. It's like kind of like that weird like that weird in between stuff.
It's
kind of more like just a boring filler movie, but it's like the Twin Towers is obviously like kind of a step above that because it's like it has like a lot more stuff happening in it. But I don't know, just as far as this episode 2, I just remember like a bunch of long dialogue and then just like sprawling fields with like those huge walker things, and then just a bunch of clones jumping out of it, and then like Jar Jar riding in on like this weird horse animal thing, and that was I don't know, it's like you know what I'm saying? Like I don't know, is like I don't not like hate it, but it's like if I'm going to go watch a Star Wars movie, that's not going to be one of them that I'm going to watch. Like I'll go through it.
I typically skip number 2.
Yeah, like I'll go through it if a new one's coming out, but I'm not, dropping a hat to go watch it.
Yeah,
Kind of is. It is what it is.
What?
That brings. Oh, go ahead.
No, just one more thing I do have to say about the prequels in general is you can I don't think you can argue that the universe building and just like actually expanding the Star Wars universe, the prequels were better than that at any of the other movies, at like actually showing you new places and new types of aliens, and it's like actually making the universe a lot bigger and a lot cooler, I think, by actually
the budget was up and CGI was better for the time.
So I mean, you go to like the ocean planet, you go to this desert planet that's not Tatooine, but is like actually interesting in its own way, and Naboo and all these other places and all these different spaces that are really cool. And
Yeah,
so I
will admit that it did do like good universe building.
Yeah,
like you were saying,
it's undefeated in that regard. But yeah.
Then it brings us to episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, which I remember going to the midnight premiere of it with my father. He took me, waited in line. We got there, and the line was all the way out in the parking lot. This is when they still did midnight premieres, and for all the shootings and stuff.
Yeah.
And we got in line, and we saw our buddy Tyler Smith, guitarist for Kudzu Killers. But my dad and him were friends, and they waved us up, and we totally line skipped, and it was well deserved. And we waited there, just talking Star Wars and stuff. And we got in there, and I had drunk a big thing of fruit punch before coming there. And I think it's about halfway mark of the movie when they go to the Wookiee planet.
Yeah,
They go to the Wookiee planet, and I lean over to my dad, and we're sitting in the middle of the theater, middle row. I go, Dad, I gotta go to the bathroom. He leans back over, his eyes rolled. He says, if you gotta go to the bathroom, we're leaving the theater. And I said, okay. And I waited there about, what kids do. About 10 minutes later, I was like, I can't hold it. We got up. I went to the bathroom, and I said, we can get back to our seats. He's like, nope. And we just walked out of the theater. And I think we went back the next day and watched it during the day.
Fair enough. It can be awkward, especially in an actually packed theater. To mess with that.
My feelings were hurt. I'm still hurt, Dad, when you're listening to this, because I know you are. You hurt me. That's why I'm messed up.
The wounds are still fresh.
Lightsaber wounds are.
But episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, man. I typically when I do when a new Star Wars is coming out, I'll start from episode 3, skip the first 2 because I watched the first one way too many times. 2's not worth it, but 3, I'd put 3. It's number 1 on the top 3 of the prequel trilogy, just because it's PG-13 rated. You little crispy Annie at the end there. Even though the acting's just.
They should have thrown their one F word in there for the PG.
Oh, absolutely. Like Obi-Wan watching the footage of the younglings, and he's like, Annie.
Something like that. Maybe they could have had they could have had a tasteful sex scene, like a soft sex scene or something. Nah, that would have been too much. Maybe, I don't know.
I mean, you had Natalie Portman. Come on. God.
They could have been. Maybe when they reboot prequels 40 years from now.
Yoda clapping them Yaddle cheeks, you know what I'm saying? I would pay to watch that extra.
I think Yaddle actually died in between.
Yeah, cause she's not on the council anymore.
Yeah, I remember reading. I checked out a library book when I was young, like a Star Wars Expanded Universe novel where Yaddle dies in it. So I think she was ruled out for episode 3. Yeah.
I will say that's interesting, and this groups in with the originals and the prequel trilogy, is the expanded universe. that George Lucas he had to okay it to be official Star Wars expanded universe.
Yeah.
And I mean, the only one I have read, and I've been told to read a few. There's one I can't. There's two I think actually, but it's like zombies and stormtroopers, and I was really big into zombies back in the day.
Yeah.
But I read the Darth Bane stuff, which is Old Republic. And dude, that stuff's baller. Like, I don't know. I'm not big into reading like fantasy. I'm pretty strict Stephen King. I'm reading Stephen King right now, Finders Keepers of the Mr. Mercedes trilogy. But I read that and I was getting hyped up while reading it. I was like, dang, this dude's bad. This is a bad dude. It's just basically from the point of view of Sith, and that's always interesting. But anyway, when Disney bought it, they're like, you know what? These hundreds of maybe 1,000 books, disregard them.
Yeah,
disregard them. They're fanfics now. That was George Lucas stuff. So
it's just like Tumblr stories and stuff. You know, like they just kind of like threw it out. You know,
they do, man. And which some of it's preserved. Some of it's preserved, like the Rule of Two, which is mentioned in the Darth Bane stuff. They mentioned that in the novelization of Phantom Menace, and so it is. Darth Bane is also, I think he makes a Force appearance or something in Clone Wars animated series, and so it's sewn into even though it's expanded universe, we still got these things where all right, they're part of the actual universe, whether Disney owns it or not.
Clone Wars is the only like route for those things to get into the actual universe anymore. But who shit anymore? It's all it's all destroyed. Who cares?
You're going to be fun to talk to in these sequel trilogy.
Episode 3, I would argue is actually a good movie.
It is a good movie. The acting might not be on point, but that's just Anakin alone being just a pussy.
Yeah, it's easily the best prequel. I don't know how anyone would argue that. Again, even with like the acting gets cringe, but I think at this point you just take that as, you know, that's just how the prequels are. I mean, maybe it even has kind of a charm to it now, like a nostalgic charm where you're like, yeah, it's not good, but it makes it what it is. But yeah, I think the story in episode 3 is actually good. It makes sense. The plot actually makes sense instead of being all. Episode 1 didn't really have a plot. Episode 2's plot was really pointlessly boring and maybe a little complicated. Episode 3 made perfect sense. They did it well. There was a lot of cool stuff to look at in it, which is really what you want out of a Star Wars movie at this point. So yeah, I would actually put episode 3 in definitely probably in the top 5 or 6 Star Wars movies in general.
I'll agree with that.
I have a high opinion.
I definitely agree with that. I would agree with that.
Revenge of the Sith it went from, I mean, I guess Darth Maul getting chopped in half and Qui-Gon getting killed isn't lighter tone, but it went for a darker tone in Revenge of the Sith. Okay, you know, all the OG fans are like, okay, we know where this is going. We just how are we going to get there? And I think they did a good job with what they had and what they did.
Yeah, you know, I think
General.
What were you gonna say?
I was going to say General Grievous. He was an interesting, just side character.
Yeah, he was pretty cool.
Add to my collection.
Yeah, I think when the movie ends, you sit there and you think, yeah, this checks out. This makes sense. It's pretty believable that this is how Darth Vader would have gotten set up and everything. Maybe it's a little quick. Maybe the way he turned evil was maybe a little quick, but yeah, it makes perfect
It's
sense.
believable now, going back and watching the prequel trilogy, and you should see Anakin he's just so badly wants to be recognized by the Jedi Council and be on it, and it's just like Mace Windu's like, you can't be on the Jedi Council. You didn't do it. You didn't execute that order.
Yeah,
or some, whatever.
He's on the council, but he's not a master yet because he's too young. Blah blah blah. But
yeah.
But I think the movie is actually a little smarter than you might give it credit. Just you in general might give it credit, like on first viewing, because Palpatine kind of seduces Anakin to the dark side. But when you think about it, nothing that Palpatine says isn't true. He's actually completely right about the Jedi and everything. Like the Jedi were corrupt. They were corrupt. They were like myopic, and they weren't fair. They were like too bloated and into the system and all this stuff. And they wouldn't listen to Anakin. So really, everything Palpatine said to Anakin was pretty true. Stuff like that, I think, actually makes the movie more interesting than the other prequels, for one. But
it kind of reminds me of like Macbeth.
Yeah,
it's like this young Jedi has all this like vaulting ambition, and it's like has all this like hubris about what the Jedi Order could be, and what he could be, and then like the temptation of like Palpatine, of like like he mixes in, like he tells the truth, he speaks the truth, but at the same time he has ulterior motives himself.
Yeah,
and he just kind of like gets wrapped, and he kind of gets intertwined in between like right and wrong, and he just like eventually has this great downfall of his own, his love life, but and he basically like loses everything, and it just culminates to like the end where they're on like fighting in Hawaii on this huge ass volcano.
Yeah, fighting in Hawaii.
And then they're just like on this huge volcano, and it's this like kind of sets up for the first say of the trilogy, the first trilogy, and it's like now why Darth Vader is just like this cold, heartless human being, because like he lost everything, he doesn't have nothing to lose, so it's just like trying to get the Empire to rule the galaxy. That's his only like goal in life.
While trying to save his wife and children, he lost it all.
Yeah, it makes the most sense out of the whole prequel trilogy. It makes the most sense out of all of them.
And it makes sense too how he does actually eventually save Luke, just because you see how he wasn't. I mean, he was evil, but he wasn't evil. He just kind of got in too deep before he knew it.
Controlled too much.
Yeah. So it's like honestly pretty good, kind of baby's first Macbeth kind of tragic hero sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
One more thing I need to add just for myself is the prequels. What helps redeem the prequels so much is that the era of the prequels in general, that's basically when all of the Star Wars video games came out that mattered, basically. And those, I don't think you can't overlook those in how they actually contributed to the lore and added to the story, like the Old Republic stuff, the Knights of the Old Republic video games. I played through.
Have you been playing that recently?
Yes. But all this stuff and like the expanded lore in the video games and stuff really just adds a whole lot, and it just adds a lot to the nostalgia and enjoyment for a lot of people. So I think in some ways this is definitely the peak era of Star Wars media. Maybe that's a hot take, but just the sheer amount of media you had around Star Wars, and like the video games and the TV shows, like the cartoons and the books and the movies, that was kind of the peak.
Will there ever be good game? I mean, I say the 3 good Star Wars games would be Knights of the Old Republic, Battlefront 2, and the what's the one with the clone?
Force Unleashed.
Force Unleashed, yeah. Would there ever be another Star Wars game as good as those? Because I consider those 3 the big 3.
That new one they just made like last year, they're saying it's pretty good.
Fallen Order.
I was told that was excellent, yeah.
But I haven't played it, so I really can't, attest to it.
I think in general, it's not so much about sort of a Star Wars problem, but I think in general games it's harder to make games now, from what I understand. Like, it's a lot more expensive and stuff. Also, games are just kind of shitty in general now because of like microtransactions and stuff. Of course, we saw that with like Star Wars Battlefront, where
gosh,
EA, get your act together, EA.
Yeah, and how you would have had to play. You would have had to play 400 hours to unlock Darth Vader, something insane like that. So I don't think so.
I didn't play that Battlefront 2, which just, used the name Battlefront 2 for sales. But Battlefront 1 was good. There should have been a campaign. If it would have been a campaign and the matches wouldn't have taken, 30 minutes each.
Yeah.
Which that brings on to the next. When will there be a Star Wars Battle Royale? Probably the next 3 years.
Oh, I'm sure they're fast at work on it with everything else. I think that era, good video game tie-ins to movies and stuff, it's pretty much over, I think.
Finding Nemo on GameCube was the best adaptation. That was a hard game, by the way. If anybody ever played that was very hard. And I'll close this one out, the prequel trilogy, by saying I played the Episode 3 Xbox game, which went along with the movie, obviously.
Yeah.
And that was a blast. I'll put that up there too as one of I'd play again in a heartbeat. But if you played the final battle, which is Obi-Wan and Anakin, if you played it once, you could go back and play it again. And the second time you played it from Anakin's perspective, and it ends with you chopping Obi-Wan and walking away, and Palpatine hands you a red lightsaber and you're whole again, which was kind of odd, but it was interesting to just see that different take.
Yeah, and then you kill Palpatine and you're the top dog, right?
Yeah.
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 Yes.
Maybe. I don't know. It's
knows about this. But.
And then that also, the final battle was the Ben Kenobi and Darth Vader. After that, I guess they threw it in like, bonus content. Here you go. Yep. It was really cool. If I could go back and play that game, I would. But I guess that's all there is to be said on the prequel trilogy. But so I would like to go to. See, it's difficult. Force Awakens. We'll come back to Rogue One. Force Awakens, I enjoyed. I knew what they were going for, throwing some nostalgia at you, just drawing you back in. Because originally Disney, this first time Disney putting out a movie with Star Wars title on there. Disney just wanted to redo the whole thing. Like he was like, let's disregard everything that's there and do our own thing. But then they're like, you know what? We owe it to the fans to kind of ease them out of this. So let's do a trilogy and kind of say goodbye to the kill the past.
Oh God.
But Ben, what's your take on Force Awakens? Introducing these characters and a stormtrooper rebel.
I have to preface this by saying the new movies shouldn't have been made. Realistically, yeah, they were always going to make them, but in a perfect world, they wouldn't have been made because there was really no in my mind, Episode 3 completes the Skywalker story. Like it's the circle, more or less. The circle is completed, and it's what more do you need, really? To me, the story is over with Episode 3. That completed the whole thing. So these movies shouldn't have been made. If anything, I wish they had made like a Knights of the Old Republic trilogy. Would have been awesome.
Gosh,
but I understand I understand that they weren't going to do that. Like I do understand. Number 2, Disney has no soul. Just obviously Disney is like one of the 6, like one of the like 4 or 5 or 6 biggest media companies in the world. I mean, they're kind of like the Amazon of media. They're kind of like the evil empire. So the fact that the movies really didn't need to be made, and the fact that Disney made them, like obviously it was just a cash grab. So that's the framework I'm looking through. But
okay, that's breakfast.
It's just a new hope all over again. I don't know how anyone could deny that. Like it's the same thing. You have the droid, you have the farm boy, but this time it's a farm girl who lives on Tatooine, except it's not Tatooine. Yada yada yada. There's the Death Star.
Jakku.
There's literally the plans to the Death Star. It's like literally the plans to the Death Star and all this stuff. It's literally the whole thing over again.
I want to be like Granddaddy, and I made Starkiller Base. Which let me just jump in real quick and just say, it's interesting concept, just not executed perfectly. It was basically the thought of, because they always aligned the Third Reich with Star Wars. Like, okay, Darth Vader's kind of, but it was like, what if you found out your grandfather was Hitler? And it's like, what if you reacted of, well, I want to be like him. And so that's kind of what the role that they went with. Man, they wasted Finn. Finn was such an interesting character. They wasted Finn, Captain Phasma. I get pissed off about this. I have an action figure.
Again, I mean, case in point, Captain Phasma, just like Porgs, it's just to sell toys. There's no other.
You're getting ahead of yourself on the Porgs,
I know,
man. The Porgs is where it's at, bro. I like the Porgs.
It's clearly just merchandise stuff. Like, there's no reason for Captain Phasma to be in there. She doesn't do anything. They were trying to create
Boba Fett again, and they didn't learn that you can't create a Boba Fett. They're born. It just happens.
Exactly. Yeah. So.
Yeah, totally to sell toys. Oh, we got Captain Phasma, shiny female stormtrooper general or whatever.
Shiny Amazon stormtrooper lady. She could have been cool, but
they threw her away twice, and like they brought her back in the second movie, or the second of the sequel series or sequel trilogy. I keep saying series, sorry, and it's like well, we brought her back. Let's just disregard her again and just let her float off a piece of metal. Well, anyways, I'm getting hyped up. So, Force Awakens, I enjoyed it. It was a good, solid note. and I know a lot of people hated it, but I thought it was a good solid note to start a sequel trilogy that didn't need to be made.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
the hallmark for me is like this: the whole new trilogy would be just like the visuals that J.J. Abrams created. I think it has some of the best visuals like that I've seen in movies in like a couple, and like I'd say the last like 10 years, it has some of the best visuals.
Yeah, it definitely looks really good.
Like J.J. Abrams done his like magic on it with the lens flare and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Signature.
But yeah, it was basically like a New Hope 2.0 for me. But at the same time, like I still like episode 7 a lot. It had, like any movie, it has its like high points and its low points. But I kind of definitely see it was kind of unnecessary to make it.
Yeah, I didn't hate it. Like, it's undeniably, it's like an effective, blockbuster movie. It's good in itself. To me, it's just kind of lazy. Like, it's literally just A New Hope over again. So it didn't really inspire me in that regard. I also think the fact that they built the Death Star for the third time, like when they did it in Return of the Jedi, it was like, okay, maybe. But then now it's the third Death Star, and here's one of the things with J.J. Abrams is he just inflates everything to like a really absurd scale so that nothing even matters anymore. So it's like, not only is it the Death Star, it's actually they turned an entire planet into the Death Star, and it can just blow up like 10 planets at once with no real problem. And so he just inflates it to like this really cartoonish thing. Because for me, I remember, in A New Hope, when they blow up the planet with the Death Star, it's like a big deal. Like, oh shit, they just blew up a planet, and then like oh my god, and then 20 years later they just blew up 15 planets at once with the planet.
Yeah, no big deal.
It's just like, oh, okay, all right. So
that's funny that you point that out about J.J. Abrams, like blowing it up to proportions where it doesn't matter. You just make it as big as you can, and you can't really combat it because I don't know. That makes so much sense with anything that he touches.
It's kind of George Lucas-y in a way, it's like kind of, George Lucas put 10,000 Jedi in the arena on Geonosis in episode 2 or whatever. J.J. Abrams, it's the same sort of thing.
It's the more cowbell thing, like I was saying.
Yeah.
We need a bigger cowbell.
We need.
So it was like they were like making Star Killer Base is what it was called, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. I liked it more than episode 1 and 2. So,
fair
enough. If it's better than those two, then I'm definitely going to watch it and enjoy it.
Man, it was interesting for them to bring Finn in, and all he does is scream "Ray, Ray," or "Woo."
Yeah,
I don't know, man. He's such an interesting character. Another person that I have an action figure of. Man, I sound more of a nerd than I thought I would.
See, I would argue that they did a little bit of character for the people in Force Awakens, but as we will find out with the rest of the trilogy, they just don't really ever do anything with them. Especially like Finn, like you said, gets wasted. Poe doesn't really do much. Rey doesn't have a character arc. She doesn't change at all.
No,
in fact,
she's. Go ahead.
Just like a lot of the men's rights activists or whatever, they complain that she's a Mary Sue from the get-go, which she is. Like, but I don't really freak out about that like they do, the whole like blah 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 feminism thing. It's just, yeah, she's really overpowered, and she's just always really good at everything, pretty much throughout the whole trilogy.
they try to say that they tempt her with the Sith, but there's no point for me throughout the sequel trilogy where I'm like, oh, she's going to turn to the dark side. It was always like, oh, she's going to be the Jedi the whole time.
Yeah, it was never in doubt. So I kind of wish they had actually made her more of a real character by actually giving her some real weaknesses other than being sexually confused about Kylo Ren or whatever.
Well, like her main weakness would be like it would go back. She would have a flashback about whenever she was separated from her parents, and that would be like that. Like in Kylo Ren, we know like would like do that ESP, telepathy stuff, and you know what I'm saying.
Yeah,
like, it kind of seemed like that was kind of like her only like character flaw. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, Kelsey wanted to jump on this when I told her what the topic was. She's like, "Let me talk about." I was like, "No, we'll save you for the fanfic episode because she's a Raylo all the way." And I mean, that's fine. Be whatever. There's worse out there. there's a lot of Kylo Ren with octopus bottom. I don't know what that's about, but it bothers me.
No, I just wanted to say, I feel like, did we stoke Kelsey's Kylo Ren fandom a little? Because I feel like before we really started talking about the whole Kylo Ren fetish, she was kind of just like, yeah, I like Kylo Ren. But the more we talked about it, the more, like, the deeper she got into it.
The more open she is about it, yeah.
She was always super Kylo fan.
Yeah. What happened was one day, like she just told me that she liked Kylo Ren. I was like, oh, that's fine. I was like, Ray is pretty hot, whatever. Pretty hot for like a plane, whatever. I don't want to sound objective, but but and so one day I just jokingly sent her a Tumblr link to the Raylo, like Raylo smut and whatever, and. Then I don't know. She opened up about it more, and I was like, okay. I mean, it's funny that I don't know. I guess she was a closeted Raylo.
Fiction or whatever.
Really, and then we kind of stoked her and just got talking about it more. But my topic of why my wife is Kylo Ren lover, I do not know. That's just between her and God, I guess. Yeah. Force Awakens, man. It did set up for some great things.
Yeah, I mean,
but you started figuring out, so we're gonna kill off an OG character per episode after they killed Han off, and
I forgot about that, honestly.
That was heartbreaking. That was a good point. It was just like you make it to that part, and he's like battling with himself. And Adam Driver is an excellent actor. I watched a few different things now with him in it, and he is a great actor. And just him conveying that emotion of he's torn, but he doesn't know what to do, and he makes the decision of being a Sith and killing his father off. But yeah, that's heartbreaking. Poor Han. He deserved better.
I don't know. I guess I was just so kind of like emotionally disconnected from these new movies. Like, I don't know. To me, all the sequels are just kind of like DLC to me. This is like, oh, here's an extra thing if you want it. So when Kylo Ren killed Han Solo, I didn't really care because to me, it was just like a fanfic sort of thing. Like, oh, this is like an alternate timeline maybe in which this happened, but it wasn't that real to me. So I just was like, oh.
You're going to accept it, Ben. That's what happened in this timeline. You're going to accept it right here and right now. Han Solo is dead.
Okay, sure. I mean, whatever. But.
Whatever you want to believe. He's alive in my dreams.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. Force Awakens, it kicked it off. J.J. Abrams like, all right, we're going to do. I guess Disney was behind it too. Like, we're going to do a director different per each of the sequel trilogy, just to give it new life and breathe something different. Because George Lucas choked the life out of the prequels and whatnot.
Well, they choked these ones.
Well, before we get into the Last Jedi, we'll jump to Rogue One, which was such a smart move.
Yeah, it was. That's probably it was great.
You went from you had all these boys that hated Force Awakens to Rogue One of, okay, we're getting back on track. This is interesting characters that are side notes and play. I mean, in the finale, they do play a bigger part because that is the plans of the Death Star that they give away. But it gave something to both audiences. Like, okay, newcomers, here you are. OGs, here's your little prequel to Episode 4. And I thought it was good. I mean, it was great. We watched that. I just remembered this. We watched that as my bachelor party.
Did we?
We did. We went to we did rehearsal, and then we went to the movies. And oh man, because I just drove in from Georgetown to Harlan, and I was so tired. And then Lanky was beside me too, and he just drove from Myrtle Beach. Yeah. And oh man, I think me and him were just trying to keep each other awake, and we just kept dozing off here that movie, even though it was great. It was just the circumstances. But yeah, it was a good movie. Good characters. Steve Droid.
I know some people, again, like certain people, I guess, claimed it was just it's just like fan service. But really, I mean, what am I watching Star Wars for in the 2010s if not for fan service and nostalgia? So,
absolutely.
And like, obviously, it delivered on it with the whole Darth Vader. Like, the last 10 minutes or 5 minutes or however long that sequence is just an orgasm of nostalgia.
There was many tents in my pants because of that scene, dude. That and Steven, I know Steven, he might listen to this and he'll agree with this. When you just hear Darth Vader breathing in that hallway, and then lightsaber just lights up. Oh.
That's what I paid. That's what I pay $8 or however much to see a Star Wars movie. That's what I want to do. $7.25 or however much. Yeah, I don't think the characters were non-existent for me personally. Like it didn't matter who they were. They were just kind of. It was just that movie was more like a setting. It was just like a setting. You're like a. Yeah, it was a setting, really.
I don't know, that movie kind of like bought for the Star Wars, like this kind of I'm like not really a fan of Star Wars, but I like it. You know what I mean? I'm just kind of like, but it's like that kind of embodied the whole resistance thing. Like, you know, we're in this to the end, and we don't care if we die or nothing. Is like this whole thing of like the side of the good guys, like. We're in this till the death, and it's like, you know, that planet's getting blown to shreds, and like they just feel like so accomplished about what they did, and that's kind of like embodies like the whole like when it's like you rebel scum. That's like basically like that's basically like embodies the spirit of like the rebels throughout like the whole thing of the Star Wars. Is like, you know what I mean.
There were bigger risks that you cared about. Like, even though, Ben, you said like the characters you didn't care about too much of where they're going to end up, you felt, I don't know, you were more into it than, I don't know, somebody dying besides an OG character in the sequel trilogy. But you cared more about, oh man, because you get to that moment of, this is why you don't see these characters reappear. and there's no. But like, yeah, you cared more about their cause and the effect.
It does a good job at actually showing that there was actual sacrifice being made, like there's actual suffering going on. Mm-hmm. That's another problem I felt like with the sequel trilogy in general, is it never, like, they were always going to win. No one ever really was that upset. Like, even in, I know I'm jumping ahead, but like in The Last Jedi, when apparently basically everyone in the rebellion dies except for like 20 people, yet they don't even seem that upset about it. I think Rogue One did a good job showing that people died and suffered. So I did like the fact that they die at the end. I think that's something sort of, breaking the mold of, they always win and the hero always lives kind of thing. I kind of liked that they didn't make it out. Made it better for me, I think.
And the cinematography of that movie, like Darnell said about the prequels and the sequel, the world building and stuff like that, it was the cinematography of, you see the Death Star like from like a horizon view almost. I don't know how to explain that view.
Like moon in the sky kind of thing.
Gosh, it's really good. They did really well with it.
Yeah.
And then you introduce, I guess they introduced the is it Death Troopers? Is that what they're called? The ones at the beginning.
Like the dark ones.
Yeah, they're more lethal and whatever. I always liked that. But yeah, Rogue One, it was fan service of, okay, we know people aren't going to like this new one because it's nostalgia and people are going to hate on it because it's not something new. But this is also nostalgia, but it's something truly new and adds to the story.
Yeah.
So, anything else on that movie in particular?
No, it's a good little movie. Probably the best, in my opinion. Maybe up with The Force Awakens is the best of the new Star Wars movies, I think.
Mm-hmm. So that brings back, we're going by release. So they released Force Awakens, then they did Rogue One, and they jumped back to the sequel trilogy. And they brought us The Last Jedi with Rian Johnson at the helm. The Last Jedi, and I'll say this, it had lots of flaws. I still hate Rose Tico, man. They created her solely so it would take off the hate from Finn, because people didn't care for Finn. So it just threw in this whiny girl that was supposed to be. Then you'll have these feminists that will be like, well, you just don't like strong female characters. Well, she wasn't a strong female character. She was just an annoying one that served no purpose to the story. But The Last Jedi had, I would put it, the scene in the Red Room with the knights and Kylo and Rey. Kylo just sliced Snoke in half, and Kylo and Rey go back to back. I would put that as my favorite lightsaber battle scene in any of the Star Wars.
For real?
Yeah, above Darth Maul, above. It is.
I respect it.
It's just, I don't know, man. When that happened, I threw my arms up, and it was just like, I don't know. I felt like a kid again because all this was going on, and it was something totally unexpected. Even though it was ruined for me thanks to social media.
All right.
But Rian Johnson had many flaws in it, and I think he just wanted to be a prick at some points. J.J. Abrams asked all these questions. He had all these questions in Force Awakens of like, why is the lightsaber calling to Rey? Who is Snoke? And why is Finn a rebel stormtrooper? But Rian Johnson's like, you know what? We don't got to answer any of that. And that's kind of, I had read a good, detailing of Ryan Johnson's creations, and it was just how J.J. Abrams wants wholesome answers, and Ryan Johnson leaves things for interpretation, and there's never truly a complete answer in like all of his movies.
Yeah, I mean, to say the least, that's what he did with this movie. So,
I mean,
so what's your take, hater?
No, Darnell, what were you going to say?
Or no, I'll let you go, and then I'll come back. I'm still forming my hypothesis.
I mean, I've already, over the past 3 years or whatever, I've already complained about this movie so much. It's really all I have to say is, like you said, it undoes everything that they set up in The Force Awakens. It's like, oh, who are Rey's parents? Oh, it turns out they were no one. Oh, and all this sort of stuff. And like, oh, it turns out the Jedi aren't important or special. Luke. The whole Luke becoming an asshole hermit, that didn't really bother me so much. Like, okay, he's just an 8-year-old Bart. Okay, whatever. For me, it was just the movie. It just kind of ruined the whole like storyline of basically just the storyline for me, because it's sort of just, I don't even know. It's hard for me to describe because I've already complained about this so much over the years that I'm kind of forgetting. But I haven't watched it in like a couple of years either. But
I've watched it a few times in the last couple of months actually, because we just kind of cycle through the Star Wars movies in between the cartoons.
Yeah, it's just stuff like the Rose Tico thing. Like, why? What's the point? Also, Finn had a bit of a character arc in Force Awakens, right? Where he was just like on his own, and he didn't care about helping anyone or anything.
Then he was just trying to get away.
But then by the end, he's like a good guy, right?
Yeah.
Now in this one, he's just running away again. So like, okay, that was pointless.
Jump ship, and then he's trying to find a hacker, which they don't. Yeah. They find for like a second, then they like, oh, you know what? We're going with the great value hacker. Yeah. Gosh, that whole side story is just trash, man.
Yeah, that was
them going to that planet. Let's free the creatures and not the slaves.
Oh yeah, and then like for instance, what is it? They free the camel horse things. Yeah. Like Rose takes the saddle off of the camel horse, and Finn says he's like, "Oh, we almost won, but we lost." And then she takes the saddle off of the abused camel horse, and she says, "Actually, we won." Or she's like, "We won in the end." And it's like, what? I don't know, just stupid little just things like that.
It's like in reality, those can be recaptured. Like the moment they leave that planet, they're probably going to be recaptured.
Yeah,
and you could have totally saved those slave children, and I don't know, take them with you.
It's just other things like, I don't usually get on the whole like feminazi bandwagon sort of thing, but at certain points in the movie, like the fact that Admiral Holdo or whatever, that she's just like a complete asshole to everyone right out of the gate. Like, she just completely treats him like shit from the get-go. Because the whole point is there's like 20 people left in the rebellion, right? Because everyone else got blown up or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so he just wants to know the plan. Like, he literally goes up there and says, "What's the plan?" She just says, like, "Shut the fuck up." Like, it's it's like, you don't need to know the plan. Just like stick to your post or whatever. And it's like, there are 20 people left. Why don't you just tell them the plan? I don't get it. Why wouldn't you tell them the plan?
What we're going to do is we're going to fuel the ships, and then I'm going to send this baby into hyperspace toward the big ship. Which that was a really cool scene, but
It's cool.
Yeah, why was she being an ass about it?
It's just that, and yeah, they're apparently no one ever mentioned gas before, like fuel in Star Wars, but now all of a sudden there's fuel. So it's like, oh, we can't jump to hyperspace because we don't have enough gas or whatever. But then, what were you going to say right now?
No, it's kind of like Star Trek. We don't have enough warp crystals.
Yeah.
Given the loss, she's got Captain. You know what I mean? It's like nobody cared about like jumping like hyperspace in Star Wars. You just done it.
He just did it. Yeah. But I mean, that's sort of a minor thing.
Yeah.
Other things like, so their eventual plan is, they're tracking the big ship, but the rebels are going to escape on the escape pods, right? Or like smaller ships. But the Empire or whatever, they're literally like right there behind them. They can see whatever they're doing. It's like, wouldn't they see them? And I guess they did eventually anyway. They just saw them fly down to the planet. So you're not going to escape anyone. I don't know. Just little things like that didn't make any sense. Yeah.
It was just so many plot holes and bad writing. Even though, I mean, it had the great fight scene in it. Was the only good characteristic. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
No, the only other thing I have to say about this movie is the one good thing about it was that it actually could have been interesting with the whole theme is like the Jedi and the Sith. They're both out of date and they're both, we should move beyond that whole thing. What if there's something outside of just black and white, good versus evil?
The gray.
Yeah.
They didn't even... Dude, I read a bunch of theories leading up to that movie. They did nothing with it. There was like, they could totally change the Star Wars future just by going, okay, when Kylo stuck his hand out, like, let's do something different. This ain't working. Let's be grays or whatever. He could have done that, and Luke could have taught her the ways of the gray. And they totally just threw it in the can and like, you know what? We're going to have Jedis and Sith forever.
Yeah, I mean, on the one hand, I understand that because Disney would never allow something that interesting to happen with Star Wars. But yeah, so they had the chance to make it actually sort of interesting and they didn't do it. So that's that for me. But
Darnell, what's your thoughts on Last Jedi?
Let's see. I don't know. I kind of, I don't know. For me, I liked all the, all of them pretty, they're pretty just average, 7 out of 10 movies. But as far as, I just kind of like the back and forth between for me, like the biggest thing from that movie was the whole back and forth between like the old way versus the new way. And it's like this how Rey goes to talk to Luke on the planet with the Porgs. And it's just kind of like, it seemed like it was rushed because like how could Rey, learn to harness this newly found power that she found like 3 weeks ago. And you know what I'm saying? It seemed like it was kind of rushed. They kind of rushed. They kind of rushed her like whole evolution into be like, the Last Jedi. And I don't know, that was just kind of my thing. And like Luke was saying how like, like basically he was saying like he'd lived his life and, nothing mattered anymore. But he had like everything that ever made any sense was like in this Jedi library or this one book. You know what I'm saying? Is like, well, it kind of, for me, it just kind of threw everything out the window and is like, well, we're just scrapping this. We're starting over again. The Jedi, the Sith, none of that mattered. It's just we're living in the modern times. It's like now. That's like my main problem with it. It kind of just rushed everything and disregarded the past in a way for me.
quick note on those. It's funny that you mentioned the Jedi text. Yoda shows up and just burns the location. I guess, yeah, he's in control of that. I guess.
Yeah.
Burns it, and dude, it was pretty awesome seeing Yoda again. So that was very pleasant.
Right.
But it's like you think, oh, the texts are gone, and then you see one brief second of them that Rey took them with her, and they're on that ship when they load up on. But they're never mentioned again. Like,
Yeah,
it was just pointless. So that's.
I don't know. It just left a lot of open-ended stories. You know what I mean? Like, I just would have liked a little bit more elaboration on, a couple of things. But I mean, it's just the difference in directors, I guess, between Abrams and then, I can't remember the guy. Yeah, between Abrams and Johnson, just the dichotomy between both of them. They're different styles, But overall, I think it was an all right movie.
So, any last words on that?
No, I think. I mean, I also just one more. I thought the humor in the movie was kind of strange too.
Too much forced Disney humor.
Yeah, like in the beginning, they make a "Yo Mama" joke or whatever.
Yeah.
He's like, "I have a message for the guy's mother." Post says, and it's like, I don't know. It's just a little. The whole thing was just a little off for me.
I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Yeah, it's like.
Can you hear me now?
The Avengers humor.
Yeah, that kind of Disney Pixar sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm. But it didn't jive right.
But I don't know, but I like the visuals on. It's like at the end of the movie where they're on like that desert planet, and it's like it's like a like looks like a salt flat, and then when they start flying, it like starts turning red.
Oh yeah, it looks great.
And that I'm like that. At least the great thing about these movies, the new trilogy, were just it had some of the cinematography, the visuals, the B-roll shots. That like that's like one of the hallmarks of the whole series, or the whole trilogy was just like the visuals of it.
Yeah, for sure.
Now you go from in release dates, you go from Last Jedi to the Solo, a Star Wars story, or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
That should have not been made. It was not good.
I didn't hate it. I thought it was fine. Maybe even a little good. Maybe. I agree with you, though, that it shouldn't have been made. If anything, I don't understand why they didn't make the Obi-Wan movie first. I think everyone would have preferred to see an Obi-Wan movie before a Han Solo movie.
That or a Yoda movie. Everybody has been wanting to see, a Yoda backstory for so long. Yep. I remember talking about that in elementary school. That ain't baby Yoda, though. That's just.
Might as well be.
That's the child, bro.
But I think they could have done a movie about anyone else, and it would have been more interesting than a Han Solo one. Because to me, the whole point of Han Solo is he's like the part of his character is the fact that he's mysterious.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't really care what he did when he was young. I can probably guess anyway that it was, smug, but I don't really care. And judging by the evidence, no one else really cared either. So
it was just they put that, I don't know, it was bad placement. If they were to put that movie, if they were like, all right, we're gonna do Han Solo and then we're gonna release Force Awakens, like, okay, I guess that'd be all right. But they literally released it 2 movies later. Han Solo's been dead, and I don't know. I mean, I guess it works in some cases, but I was just bored in that movie. Like, until they introduced Chewbacca, because we watched it at the drive-in in Paris,
Mhm.
And we were like, us, because I think, I can't remember what the first movie was that came on. That was the second movie. But I was like, if this movie isn't good, we can just go home and cut it short. And up until Chewbacca appeared, I was like, yeah, we're getting ready to leave. I'm gonna give us another 10 minutes and then we're leaving. But man, I'm as much as I am a Star Wars fan, I would say I am just as much a Ron Howard fan.
Uh-huh.
And to be disappointed by Ron Howard hurts. It's
Well,
like 2 hurts in one.
I mean, you have to remember that it originally had different directors. It had the Lego Movie guys, and then they got fired. So Ron
They
Howard,
fired. Do
he
you know why they got fired though?
wasn't it like it was kind of like a comedy they were making or something
They
like
weren't.
that?
They weren't filming for like word for word from the script. They did a lot more of impromptu like stuff.
Yeah, I think just the whole thing wasn't working out. Like something I read, they would do like 50 takes for every scene for no apparent reason, kind of thing. It just was not working, so they brought in Ron Howard to rescue it. And I think
Yeah.
they reshot a lot of it, so I think I think he did a good enough job with it. It was never going to be good or like great, you know. So I don't really even think about that movie. So
I mean, the best. I think the best part about that movie was like towards the end where Amelia Clark talks to Darth Maul. that was like the highlight of the movie for me was that, and then the story of how Chewbacca and Han, became friends. They were like enemies, became friends, escaped, and then Darth Maul. That was like the highlight of that whole series for me.
Yeah, the Darth Maul scene was the best part of that movie.
The whole series, but the movie, I mean.
Yeah, that was fun. It was funny. I like that part.
I don't want to spend too much time talking on the Solo movie.
I mean, there's just not really much to say about it. It's just it was a
I'll
solid 5, maybe 5.5 out of 10. So.
To me, that goes on my list of greatest to worst. I would say it's just above Episode 2.
Really?
Oh yeah, it's down there.
Fair enough. I mean, I can see that argument for sure.
It just, I don't know, but we can just end on it's a movie that shouldn't have been made like the rest of them.
Yeah.
But so you go from Solo, and I was so discouraged because I ended on the note of liking The Last Jedi. So I was like, okay, where are we going after this? And it was The Rise of Skywalker, which is a terrible name for a Star Wars movie. And to be the finale, The Rise of Skywalker, it's like, why?
Yeah.
I guess it's just the rise of, I don't know, Ben Solo coming back to the light side.
Disney.
The rise of Disney. Yeah. But this was the first Star Wars movie besides the Solo movie that I was like, okay, I'm not excited anymore. I was like, I'm not looking forward to this movie. And we had just had our son, and we went and watched it. I guess he was like 2 weeks old by this point. And we went and watched it, and that was our first time out of the house. It was good. It was a lot of damage control is what that was.
Yeah, to say the least.
It's like, okay, Rian Johnson put me in a pickle. How am I going to get out? By answering some questions. So let's start off. Snoke is, artificial clone.
Yeah, Snoke actually didn't matter at all.
Yeah, he didn't matter. Somehow Palpatine's alive, who is also a clone. A failed clone is what I've been reading. But it was, I mean, gosh, if J.J. Abrams, I know they wanted to be risque or whatever, He should have directed all 3 movies if they were going the route they were going, because basically they shoved 3 movies into the last one.
Yeah.
So much going on, so many new characters, which that was very George Lucas. But I enjoyed the characters, all of them. Babu Frick, that sandworm type thing.
Yeah, Babu Frick was the only redeemable thing in that whole movie for me. TBH, but
TPH.
yeah,
Babu Frick was great.
No, I agree when you say that. Well, because Ryan Johnson undid everything that J.J. Abrams did in Force Awakens, and then J.J. Abrams undid everything Ryan Johnson did in Last Jedi. So they obviously didn't plan it out, which I don't know what the hell they were thinking, but it shows for sure. Because, like you said, they had to jam pack 3 movies worth of stuff into the last movie. Because really, the trilogy really doesn't even exist. Because every movie just undoes the one before it. So you start out with Rise of Skywalker, and you're just basically back at square one. Other than the fact that you know who the characters are, you have to go through the whole thing again. So yeah, it was always going to be hard for them, I think. So I'll forgive J.J. Abrams a little bit for having to deal with that with this movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was good. I enjoyed it. It was very much fan service, as much as they could pull off in a finale. Finn was still a wasted character who had no arc. Right. Besides, I think the only, thing he found out was, oh, I'm not the only stormtrooper that didn't like what was going on, so I quit.
There were just so many things that they threw in there. It was just too jam-packed with stuff, and they just did not have enough time to explain it all. For me, for one, it basically undid everything of the previous 2 trilogies, because the whole point of the original 2 trilogies is Anakin Skywalker is the chosen one, and by saving Luke from Palpatine and turning good again, he fulfills the prophecy, right? But the fact that Palpatine actually isn't dead, it just renders the whole thing void. So that was awful for me. Then just sort of less major things, but things that still didn't make sense. Where Palpatine he says to Rey, he's like, "Oh, I never actually wanted to kill you. I wanted you here with me to be Empress Palpatine." 2 things I can already think of with that are, number one, literally in the last movie, Snoke was instructing Kylo Ren to kill Rey, and he was about to do it. He was totally intent on killing her. And if Snoke was actually controlled by Palpatine, then that doesn't make sense. And then number 2, so Rey is Palpatine's granddaughter. So and Rey's mother, I forget which one of her parents was Palpatine's child.
I thought.
I think it was the father. Either way, it's why wasn't her father, Rey's father, poised to be the next Emperor Palpatine? Why did it have to skip a generation, kind of thing?
Because he
Stuff
didn't
like that.
want to be. It was something like he was a clone also. I don't know. He was like a faulty clone that had free will.
So much shit that just makes no sense for me.
Yeah, they crammed it up, and convoluted Star Wars.
I don't know. To me, it might even be more of a dumpster fire than The Last Jedi, honestly. I don't know. Both of those are pretty low on my list, but yeah. Not a lot of it made sense to me. That's really all I have to say about it. I'm glad it's over.
Darnell, your take. What's your hot take?
I don't know. I liked it. I think I liked it more. I think I liked it more than the last Jedi, to be honest. But I don't know. I kind of what kind of got me kind of like I was a little bit excited to watch it. This was when they done the trailer. They showed the trailer and it shows Rey going to like the dark side, and it kind of like I was like maybe this might be something, and then it turns out it's nothing. But I don't know. I guess that whole movie was more about just the back and forth between Kylo Ren and Rey, and then I guess so like they're fighting on like they're like the abandoned Death Stars. They're like fighting on it, and so Rey get like stabs Kylo Ren with her saber, but then she like saves him. She saves him, right?
Yeah.
With like, and I was like, well, and then she like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, she's like a superhero, and it's like Man of Steel, and she's like discovering like these new powers and stuff, and like no training whatsoever, and it's just like happening right there on the spot, and it's kind of like rushing the evolution of a character.
And their excuse is, oh, she's a Palpatine, that's why she's got the power she does.
Yeah, it's not like bashing women or anything. It just like they just rushed everything. It had nothing to do with. I think she was a strong character. They just rushed her development, and that was the main problem.
Which I was here for that Sith lightning. I was very happy with that. I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
I forgot about that part.
I had to see it for myself, so I had to push it to your limits. Yeah.
I don't know. For me, it was just so many smaller things that didn't make sense that just added up into a movie that just didn't really make sense. Just two more things, and then I'll shut up. I just remember at the end of Return of the Jedi, the Death Star blows up. Like it totally blows up. Like you see it, it's just reduced to dust and atoms, right? But then in this movie, literally half of the freaking Death Star is like landed on Endor. Like how did that work?
Hey, we don't talk about that now. We talk about stuff that makes sense.
And then no, I'm just
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just to throw in one final Death Star.
And one thing that just really sums it up for me is, so they had to find the Sith dagger, right, to find out where they needed to go. So when they used the Sith dagger, it lined up perfectly with the ruins of the Death Star, right?
Is that a holocron? Is that what that was called?
No, it was the dagger. Remember that they found?
Yeah.
No, the holocron was, that was like the data wayfinder or whatever. I think.
Okay.
The Sith wayfinder.
Yeah, but anyway, there was this dagger, and it lined up perfectly with the wreckage of the Death Star, right? So this would mean that whoever made the dagger, 20,000 years ago or however long it was, how did they know that this would line up perfectly with Death Star blown up? How did they know the exact shape that the blown up Death Star would take when it landed on the planet?
See, if you could read the Sith runes, then you'd be able to know all the mythology of that. But oh man, okay, quick note. There was just not very high stakes. I mean, you knew that Leia was going to go just because Carrie Fisher had passed away, and they'd set that up in the last two movies of OGs were going to die. And there was no higher stakes. And then you knew somebody's going to turn to the Jedi, and they were going to die. But it was like C-3PO they brought up. It was like, oh, man, that's kind of sad. They're going to wipe his memory. And then they just give it back because R2-D2 had a hard copy.
Yeah.
It was just kind of pointless of that big moment. I'm taking one final look at my friends.
And then they made it like where Rey was trying to keep like that ship from leaving the atmosphere and going back into space, and it was and apparently the ship that she brought down wasn't the one that Chewbacca was on. It was a different one.
Yeah.
I was like, how dare you? If you kill Chewbacca, I'm walking out of the theater. I don't care anymore.
That is exactly what I leaned over and told Kelsey. I said, if Chewbacca is truly dead right now, I don't think he is, but if he is, they got a little Wookiee body over there. I'm walking out of this theater.
I loved how the explanation for that is he was actually on another transport when clearly in the scene there was no other transport anywhere close. Like,
see, you didn't see
how did
over the sand dune though. It was another sand dune, man. There's...
I mean, if a ship flies into the desert sky, you're going to see it.
Dude, clean your damn eyes up. You didn't see that.
I did. One thing I really liked though is how they used Carrie Fisher's. They only had they had to use bits and pieces of her scenes that they shot. So whenever her first line when she sees Rey, she just turns around to Rey and just goes, "Rey," and then it just cuts away. It's like the most awkward thing I've ever seen. She just goes, "Rey."
Yeah, it was.
Stop.
I
don't know. I did kind of like the ending where she goes back to the home to Luke's home planet, and she has the lightsabers, and she buries them, and it just randomly engulfs the desert, randomly engulfs the lightsabers, and then she pulls out the golden light or the yellow lightsaber rather. And I thought that was a pretty cool add on to the lore of Star Wars about the yellow lightsaber.
They should have had her get that yellow lightsaber at the beginning of the movie. Her go get her crystals and then make it, and the meaning behind it. But no, they just put it at the end and won't ever see her use it again. And then the stupid scene of Rey Skywalker.
Yeah, they just didn't think it through.
Like why? Which Kelsey's speaking from Arelo, and she's told me, and I've seen this myself. There's theory that they really did a lot of editing at the end, and that Kylo Ren was there with her, alive or something other, and they buried the lightsabers together, and that's why the shots are so, I don't know, close up, I guess.
That makes sense. Huh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And I don't know, man. And it was kind of dumb just having Luke and Leia, which I understand is part of the Star Wars fan service of started with Luke and Leia back in the original trilogy, and so we're going to end with Luke and Leia being Force Ghosts staring at the new quote unquote Skywalker.
Yeah. Another thing that I read that was pointed out that was interesting is why did Rey bring Leia's lightsaber to Tatooine? Because Leia, as far as we know, has never been to Tatooine, and it has no significance to her. It only means something to her. So it's why that's a little niggle, I guess. But yeah, I don't know, things like that.
It was just they were just trying to pick up the remains that Rian Johnson did his thing. He came in, wanted to make a different kind of Star Wars movie, which is okay. But Disney, the all-powerful Disney, was like, you know what? You're fired. And JJ, you're back.
I don't know. The problem with me with the new trilogy, the new trilogy, and I guess the newer movies, was I guess it would be 2 points. I would summarize the main problems with it, just from a sort of fan looking inward on two hardcore Star Wars guys. Is one, Disney, so it's a big corporation. They're worried about making money. Nobody cares about what the fans think because it's like what Ben was saying, like the Star Wars fandom is like who really owns Star Wars. It's not like a one like entity, one body. It's like the fans own it. And they throw everything out, And then the second problem is they had too many directors. There wasn't a clear direction or motive of like where they wanted the story to go, and it just headed off. It was like 15 different movies in like like 5 movies, and it's like the main problem there was just like no direction, and it was just like catering to nostalgia and worried about making money. That was like the main problem of this like whole thing, and like it goes back to the whole first point that Ben made is like it didn't need to be made. Like there's no point in making it.
Yep. Now, Star Wars, you'll always be my first love above all of the communities because Star Wars is supreme. And I mean, it's great. Great stories. And great stories to come, I'm sure. Kind of disappointed in that the Game of Thrones directors or whatever they were dropped out because they're like, oh, the community's too toxic, which it is. But I think they pussied out because, oh, we got a caller. Yes. What is your take on the Game of Thrones season finale? No, anyway, but it would have been interesting to see them take on an Old Republic story.
Yeah,
but
at this point, no, what were you going to say?
But I guess we'll never see that because they dropped out. So, rated R Star Wars.
I hope they just stop. I think they should just end it. Obviously, they won't, but we already talked about how interest in Star Wars in general is kind of going away a little bit. I feel like they should just stop. I don't think we're going to get anything more out of it that's really going to add that much to it, unless they did like an Old Republic thing. I would like to see that, but like you just said, that's
top of the Skywalker saga and all that, because it's the final note in the Skywalker saga.
Yeah, I think they should stop. Please
stop. Give us something different. Put us in a different part of the galaxy, in a totally different galaxy.
If they just focused on like the TV show sort of stuff, like the whole Mandalorian thing is good.
Oh yeah, Mandalorian's great because it's a whole lot of fan service, but it's something new.
It does something new, and the stakes are lower. Like if a TV show goes wrong, then you can kind of deal with that more easily than if your main movie doesn't go over well. So we'll see.
You can nip it at that season, and it's forever just whatever season it jumped the shark on. But yeah, Mandalorian, keep doing what you're doing because I enjoy it.
Yeah.
But I guess
say about that.
That's all there is to say about Star Wars. Star Wars. Now let's rank them. For me, I would say greatest to worst. I'll do this quickly. New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, Force Awakens, Revenge of the Sith, Phantom Menace. Oh wait, I mean Rogue One's up there somewhere. I'm already too committed.
Give us your top 4 and your bottom 3 or 4.
Okay. top 4. Original trilogy takes 3 of those spots. See, that's okay. I'll put Rogue One as my 4th spot on the greatest, and then the bottom 4. I'll start from least to the best on those. Attack of the Clones, Solo, The Last Jedi, and The Rise of Skywalker.
All right, that's fair enough. Let's see. I think number 1 for me, Empire Strikes Back, should surprise no one. Number 2, probably the original Star Wars, New Hope. Number 3 is probably going to be, I would put Return of the Jedi just above Revenge of the Sith, which goes in 4th. Those are my top 4. Then bottom 4, worst is probably, I'm just going to put episodes 1 and 2 in the bottom 2 and not necessarily rank them. Actually, I'm going to put episode 2 as the worst. Actually, I'm going to put...
Correction.
Rise of Skywalker is the worst. Episodes 1 and 2. Episode 2 is second to worst. Last Jedi... then I'll put episode 1 third to worst, and then Last Jedi probably 4th to worst. I'll just leave it there, I think.
Okay, for me, I would say so. Top 4, I would say, I guess the best one for me would be, just from listening to you guys and then watching them the few times I have, I would say New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and then I would say Rogue One, and then the last, and then episodes, and then episode 6. This for me, this is going from best, from going down from greatest to least on the top, on like the top 4. And then the worst, hands down, the worst one would be episode 2. and then episode 2 be worst, episode 1 second worst. The third worst would probably be, let's see, I would say Solo. And then I would say probably, and then just throwing in a random, I would put in Christmas. I put in Star Wars Christmas Special.
Ooh.
Just to shake things up a bit.
If we're counting Star Wars Christmas Special, then that's definitely like rock bottom.
That is rock bottom.
We watched that with Mr. Doyle.
And Doyle threw it out, and Doyle shook his head the whole time. He's like, "This is terrible." And that he would be another huge Star Wars fan that loves everything Star Wars, and then for him to hate it, it says something.
Yeah, it's not good. Not to be recommended.
But definitely, I would say the worst. I guess like the hallmark for me would be like the worst one would be episode 2 and Christmas Special. Those two are basically equal on the worst Star Wars for me.
Well,
but I guess the end note, I was looking it up and it was saying that the next Star Wars movie is due December 16th, 2022. So what do you guys think? You think it'll be any different, or do you think it'll be the same old, same old?
I mean,
it's going to be different, I think. I mean, I won't say it's going to be the best thing we've seen, but it's going to be different. Disney's taking this these couple years off to be like, you know what, let's reassess what we screwed up and let's make it better, which they totally see that with The Mandalorian is what they should do.
Yeah, I think, again, it could be good. I mean, they've shown that they can do decent Star Wars movies. I just personally wish that they would kind of stop with the movies and maybe just do more TV type stuff. But I guess time will tell.
Yeah.
And on this final note, let's just best Star Wars character in each of our opinions. Ben, you go ahead, or
I needed to think on this one. Someone else.
Okay, I'll go. Best Star Wars character. Let's just say you all know him. You all love him. Obi-Wan Kenobi, best Star Wars character in the main series.
I mean, my first thought is to agree with you on that. I think
Disagree with me.
I think pound for pound, Obi-Wan is, I mean, he's kind of you just can't go wrong with Obi-Wan. I think Ewan McGregor did a really good job playing him in the prequels. I like Obi-Wan the most, probably. The most interesting character, I'm not sure Obi-Wan is always the most interesting because he's kind of one-dimensional. You know, he's just good. Trying to think here. I want to start talking about people from the video games because I think the video games have more interesting characters.
Well, I mean, all in all, you can say one from the video games.
I think this is real nerd shit, but from Knights of the Old Republic, Darth Revan, who is the player character, but it's like such a good plot twist because you were the top Sith, and then you were captured by the Jedi, and you were basically reborn with your memory wipe, and then you find out that actually used to be this evil guy, and then you can turn evil or good. So that for me is like actually the most interesting character I really run into in Star Wars. But from the actual movies and stuff, Obi-Wan is, really can't go wrong with Obi-Wan.
Note on that, I see a lot of people calling for Keanu Reeves to play that character in an adaptation.
He would be good in that, I think, because he's got that whole like dark side, light side battle going on inside.
Mm-hmm. I was reading something where they wanted for some, I guess, a new movie. Like people were wanting Leo and Jake Gyllenhaal to be like some part of this new upcoming movie or something. But I don't know how those two would work out in like a Star Wars movie. But I'd be willing to give it a chance.
I can't imagine Leo in a Star Wars movie. That's weird. Maybe.
I could say Jake Gyllenhaal, but Leonardo seems like, I don't know, a different type of actor for a different type. I just don't see him in like any science fiction whatsoever.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree with that. That's a true statement.
Darnell.
So Darnell.
Probably just for me. I mean, everybody loves Darth Vader, but that's like the easiest one for anybody. But for me, I would say just like probably Yoda, just because he's just shrouded in so much mystery. And like nobody's really explored him until like The Mandalorian, and even then you still don't know a whole lot about it. But I would say definitely probably for me, Yoda would be my favorite as far as just the mystery goes, and that'd be probably Yoda for me.
Interesting. I like that. Yeah, I still want a Yoda prequel series. But, I mean, I say it's time to close her out. Clocking in at almost 2.5 hours.
Could ever ask about Star Wars?
2:42, 2 hours and 42 minutes.
Lord have mercy.
Well, what do you mean? We can split it up. We'll figure it out.
No, this is going to be the May the 4th special, which is a whole ass movie long.
Yeah, this is literally like a Star Wars movie, like length podcast. So I think that's a good fitting tribute to May the 4th.
Let's go an hour and a half more to make it 4 hours for May the 4th. Just kidding. I think we covered, our personal opinions on everything. Star Wars film. I had been through in some video game knowledge there. But
I feel like at the same time we barely scratched the surface, honestly.
Yeah, we could do two or three more like about this and get, the opinion of Braxton and Doyle on here. And,
I would love to have the opinion.
We could go like into some deeper waters with this, but this is just scratching the surface though.
Maybe once we can get out of quarantine and, be around people again, us three can call it Braxton, and so it won't be all electronic sounding for every single person. But yeah, so I say that's good. Till the next one.